Today, we're going to talk about someone pretty incredible, a woman who mapped the heavens. But here's the thing, she did it at a time when the world just wasn't ready to listen to a woman at all.
I mean, just let that sink in. We're talking about a time before telescopes, before any space agencies, a time even before women were allowed inside a classroom.
In that world, one woman, just one woman, dared to ask questions. She looked up at the very same stars we see and asked questions that would shape her entire life and, in the end, her death. Her name was Hypatia.
Okay, so to really get who Hypatia was, you first have to get the world she lived in. And our story, it starts in this truly remarkable city.
So, picture this. It's around 400 AD. We're in Alexandria, Egypt. And this place, it isn't just any city. It is the intellectual capital of the ancient world. I mean, its famous library is literally overflowing with scrolls. Philosophy isn't some dusty subject. It actually shapes politics. And math is explaining the very fabric of reality.
And right there, in this buzzing, brilliant city of light, this incredible hub of genius, there was one name that shone brighter than almost any other: Hypatia.
So, who was she, really? What made her such a legend? Well, this brilliant woman was about to make her mark as one of the very first female astronomers in history.
I mean, the number of fields Hypatia mastered is just staggering. She was a famous Greek philosopher, a seriously impressive mathematician, and a groundbreaking astronomer. And this is the key part. She's one of the very first women we have on record who formally, professionally studied the stars.
And get this, she didn't keep all this knowledge to herself. No way. She taught it in public lectures, open to anyone who wanted to learn. She'd break down the complexities of astronomy, the beauty of geometry, the logic of algebra, and deep philosophy. You have to understand, for a woman to be doing this out in public, that was almost unheard of.
And she wasn't just repeating old ideas either. She was a real innovator. She was actually refining the astronomical models of her time, pushing the boundaries of what people knew. And think about the timing. So much of this ancient knowledge was in danger of just disappearing. Hypatia was like its guardian. She was preserving it, but also adding to it for the people who would come after her.
But as her influence grew, the world around her started to change. And this is where her story takes a really dark, pivotal turn. This is the moment when knowledge itself becomes dangerous.
I mean, her reputation was absolutely legendary. People would travel for weeks, even months, crossing the Mediterranean by sea and land, just for a chance to learn from her. That's how powerful her mind was. But here's the tragic irony. The very thing that made her this beacon of light, her intellect, her use of reason, her sheer brilliance, that's the exact thing that made her a threat. See, the world was shifting. New, really rigid belief systems were taking hold. And the whole tradition of free thinking and asking questions that she stood for, suddenly that wasn't seen as a good thing. It was seen as a threat to this new, absolute way of thinking. Which leads to a pretty terrifying question, right? What happens when just knowing things becomes an act of defiance?
Well, the answer to that question is horrifying, and it brings us to the climax of her story, the day that reason died.
In the year 415, right there in the streets of Alexandria, the same city that had once celebrated her, Hypatia was attacked. She was brutally murdered by a mob. And this is the absolute heart of the tragedy. You have to understand this. She wasn't killed for what she believed. This wasn't about politics. She was murdered for what she knew. Her crime was simply being brilliant. So her death was more than just the loss of one incredible person. It became this grim, powerful symbol for the end of an entire era. A lot of historians look at her murder as the turning point, the moment that marks the end of that great age of classical science in Alexandria. But here's the thing. You can't really kill an idea, can you? Her life was cut short, violently, yes. But her story? Her story lived on. And that brings us to her legacy. A legacy without gender.
Over all the centuries since, Hypatia has become this immortal symbol. A symbol of reason pushing back against irrationality, a symbol of courage when facing down pure hatred, and a symbol of our fundamental right to intellectual freedom.
And that's really her powerful, timeless message, isn't it? Her life proved that the search for truth doesn't care about your gender. It belongs to everyone. But her death proved that sometimes
that pursuit comes with a terrible, terrible cost.
And so that leaves us with this final, haunting question. A question that echoes from her time all the way to ours. What does it cost to be right when the world around you is wrong? Hypatia's story doesn't give us an easy answer, but it sure does demand that we never, ever stop asking that question.